All right, so 3.4, talking about bivariate data sets, two variable data sets. All right, we're gonna talk about two types today. The first one is a scatter plot. So a scatter plot you use when you have bivariate numerical data. Bivariate numerical data. And I think you guys have all seen a scatter plot. How to make it, you start with a horizontal axis and mark it, right, with appropriate values. And then you do a vertical axis and you mark it with appropriate values. All right, and it kind of matters, actually not kind of, it does matter what you put as the x variable and the y variable. The x variable is going to be your independent variable, and the y variable is going to be your dependent variable. We're going to talk more about this a lot in chapter 5. So again, don't worry about this one so much right now because we're going to go in depth in chapter 5. So this is just kind of like a, hey, this is going to come up later on. So for the quiz, don't worry about it. All right, and then, oh, there's Johnny. All right, and then we're going to learn how to describe the relationship, all right, in chapter 5 as well. All right, I was gonna do an activity where you guys would create a scatter plot. Again, looking at your faces, it seems like you guys are just kind of ready for a short lesson. So let's go ahead and we'll just save this for chapter 5. Is that okay? Yeah, okay, we'll do that. All right, so don't worry about scatter plots, not gonna show up on this quiz. All right, this one, however, might. So time series plots. All right, so time series plots, basically it's also bivariate. And when we use it is when we want to see a trend over time, right? We want to see how things change over time. And it can be considered, a bivariate, where the y variable is the variable that you're measuring and that you want to see change. And the x variable is always time, right? The x variable is always time. Time is independent of everything. Time just moves on regardless of what's happening in the world, regardless of COVID, regardless of wildfires, right? Time marches on. All right, so how to construct, you're gonna make a horizontal scale and mark it with the appropriate times. It could be in years, it could be months, it could be seconds, right? It just depends. Vertical scale, mark it with however, appropriate values for whatever you're trying to measure. And plot each point corresponding to observations. And this one, you're actually gonna connect the dots with lines, right? With line segments. You're gonna connect the dots for this one. Scatter plots, you do not connect the dots. That will give you a crazy mess. But for time plots, you connect the dots. And anytime you're asked to just describe what's happening, you just comment on any trends or patterns over time. All right, you comment on any trends or patterns over time. All right, I think it's pretty intuitive, but let's practice and make sure that we're all on the same page. Okay, so let me get a reader for this one. Nathan, can you read this one out for us? Nathan, while I eat the rest of my bagel.
Sure. Can you hear me or no?
Oh, yes.
Okay. The accompanying time series plot of a movie box office totals in millions of dollars over 18 weeks in the summer for 2001 and 2002 appeared in USA Today, September 3rd, 2002.
All right, and can you read the directions?
Describe any trends or patterns that you see.
Awesome. Okay. So we just want to comment on any trends or patterns. So what do you guys think? What trends, what patterns do you notice? What would you comment on? Let me call on people. Clancy, try it. Let's start with 2001. What do you notice? Clancy, you there?
Sorry, I went to the bathroom really quick. What did you ask
Oh
me?
shoot, sorry. I didn't see you. Clancy, so if you were to like comment on the 2001 trend, like what do you notice? What would you comment on? How would you describe what's happening in 2001?
It's fluctuating a lot. It's going up and then down, and then it's consistent for a little bit, and then back up, down.
Perfect. Yeah, there's ups and downs. And specifically, where do you see like peaks?
I see peaks at like around $240 probably, and then a little under 250 right there, and then a little above 250.
Good. And what, like in terms of time, what weeks were those peaks?
Week 4,
Mm-hmm.
week 9, and 14.
Perfect. Nice. So that's it. That's exactly what you want to say when you're describing trends or patterns. So you want to talk about, hey, these were the peaks and when did they happen? And you can do the same thing with the dips too. You can talk about how there's like the lowest point was week 2 and then it went up. There was a dip at week, let's see, what was that? Like 5 or 6? 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sorry, week 5. And then it decreased after, week 14. It steadily decreased. So yeah, things like that. That's what you want to comment on. Perfect. Nice. Let me call on Billy. Billy, what about 2002? What do you see?
Um, it's it's like going up. Like, well, it starts going up and then it goes down, but then like overall, it ends up at like half of what it started at.
Good, nice. And talk about like which weeks did it go up and which weeks was it really low?
Oh, hold up. I'm not the best at counting.
I know, sorry, the graph is hard to read when you have those boxes over it.
So like week 5, it's, well, I guess at week 3, it starts going down, and then week 5, it starts going back up,
Mhm.
and then like around week like 7 or 8, it starts to go back down again until week, like I would say like 12, and then it goes back up, and then week 14, it just goes down bad.
Down. Yep, definitely. All right, so perfect. Great. So saying the trends going up, going down, which weeks those happen, that is an excellent way to describe. Great. And in general, you guys can see that there are similar peaks and valleys between these 2 years. So yeah, this is definitely true throughout, these different movies. It, goes up and goes down depending on how long it's been out. All right, so this is kind of what I wrote. If you want to just see in writing, I put, according to the 2001 and 2002 data, there are seasonal peaks at weeks 4, 9, and 14, and seasonal lows at weeks 2, 6, 10 through 12, and 18. All right, so I just talked about the peaks and the valleys. So that is definitely one way to go when you're talking about these graphs. Okay, so I think time series plots, yeah, you guys naturally know how to read these, and now you know kind of more specifically what you can talk about when you're asked to describe. All right, let me show you actually one last example, which is a bad example. And I want to see if you guys can point out what's wrong with this time series plot. Okay, so, oh, I guess I kind of tell you on the side. Well, so this was the cover of Ithaca Times. And Ithaca is where Cornell is. All right. So when I was applying for college, when I was a senior, Cornell was like my number one pick. That was like my dream school, Cornell. Did not get in. Kind of glad that I didn't get in. I'm kind of thankful for it now. But yeah, I really wanted to go to Cornell because they had this program on hotel management. So I was actually really interested in managing hotels, which would be very different than being a teacher. So interesting where life takes you. But anyway, yeah, so Ithaca Times, if you guys can see, they tried to make this time series plot comparing these 2 years. I kind of tell you a little bit on the side, but can you guys point out more specifically anything you see that makes this time series plot really terrible? Do you guys notice anything?
They start at different years.
Yeah, that's terrible. They start at different years. Good job, Billy. Yeah, one starts at 1965, the top one. The bottom one starts at 1989. It's like really small, but still, that's real bad. Okay, so that's one major one. There's another one that actually might not be as obvious. So let me give you guys a few moments to see if anybody can catch this one.
You can't really see the x-axis.
Yeah, there really is like no x-axis, right? Like there's no like intervals. You can't see like what years it's peaking and valleying. You just know it's like later than the first year and before the last year. So yeah, not great. Okay. What else? There's one thing that is pretty sneaky. I don't know if sneaky is the right word, but it implies something and it's like not great. Sorry, that's like a really ambiguous hint and it's not probably helping anybody. I would say look at the variable Cornell University's rankings. Think about that variable. When you think of ranking in terms of numbers, do you want a low number or a high number when it comes to ranking?
A lower
Low
one.
number.
Yeah. Isn't that trippy? You actually want a low number. You want to be ranked number 1 as opposed to number 100. So a low number is actually considered better. So graphically, if you look at this, your mind is thinking, oh man, as Cornell University's tuition goes up, the ranking is getting awful. But that's actually the opposite of what's happening. The ranking number is going down, but that actually means that they're getting better. The ranking is actually better with the lower numbers. Does that make sense? Yeah, so that's trippy because this, if you just look at the cover, right, your impression is tuition going up, ranking is tanking, but it's actually the opposite. It's actually getting better. So that's another thing that's kind of like misleading. If you're not really looking at the graph carefully and not thinking through it, you're left with that impression, which is actually completely opposite of what's actually happening. Yeah, so yeah, different things that stats and graphs can do to kind of throw you. Yeah, so kind of interesting, right? Cool. All right, guys, so that's it for the lesson. That's it for chapter 3. So your homework tonight is page 146, numbers 39 and 40. So I want you guys to practice a little bit with that scatter plot and time series plot. Let me give you a little warning for number, let me see, 39, I think. So for number 39, you're asked to do a time series plot. Make sure that you guys only have one line going. Sometimes I see students do like multiple lines with different years. You don't want to do that. You should have one line going throughout the time, okay? So one line. or yeah, one line going for number 39. I think that's it. So